Hey folks, Nathan here from Star Wars Beyond the Films and Cloud City Casino, a Star Wars gaming podcast over at StarWarsReport.com, bringing you a look at Star Wars 2nd Edition materials for X-Wing, as is sort of the usual around here. This time we're taking a look at an expansion that does not actually include any new miniatures, that is, Epic Battles, a multiplayer expansion of tactical space combat for 2 to 8 players. Now, Epic Battles is not necessarily going to require huge ships, they're just something that sort of makes it more interesting. It does introduce the idea of wings, though. Not wings of the ship, but wings of ships, like starfighter wings with wing leaders and everything, which is pretty cool. It sort of seems like they've taken a lot of the things that really sort of hampered the way that the huge ships and the epic play worked back in the first edition, and they sort of refined it to really be its own thing in this case, and really gave us a new game mode that's pretty cool. I definitely think that a lot of thought went into second edition beyond some of the kind of odd decisions made during first edition. So let's see what's in Epic Battles. The biggest thing is the Epic Battles rules and scenarios. We're going to take a deep dive into this one. Now, aside from introducing, of course, the new scenarios and whatnot, Epic Battles introduces wings, and that's kind of a huge deal here. So what you've got is basically up to 6 ships flying together as a wing. And how you actually move them comes down to moving them together based on what the wing leader is doing. They can leave and come back to the wing, but if they're together, they just all move with the wing leader, and you use these, either this full-size tool where each of those lines you see going off the sides, which actually be more like this when they're flying, is going into the center line of one of the ships, or a mini version of it if you need that for just between a small number, just to make sure they're positioned correctly if there's too much stuff going on around them, or a corner piece here. They're all used to keep those wings together, and they all have these little holes with those little pegs in them that honestly to me look like they should be Legos, but they more closely resemble for game purposes what we saw in Star Wars Outer Rim. Now, each wing needs a wing leader, and the wing leader determines what type of wing, what type of ships are available. These upgrade cards are what determine that. So for instance, Agent of the Empire. You're a wing leader. Your wingmates must be 2, 3, 4, or 5 TIE LN fighters. And then has an ability, and it tells you down in the corner that the wing leader themselves must be an Imperial, TIE Advanced X1, or V1. We only have 2 unique ones here that are limited to 1, Agent of the Empire and First Order Elite. Then we have 4 copies of Veteran Wing Leader, and 2 copies, limited to 2, of Dreadnought Hunter. Notice in this case it's not type of ship, it's initiative 4 or higher on small ships. Now in order to keep track of which ships are which, you have a combination of things here. Okay? These are wing ID cards. Okay? So you're going to have your wing ID card, and it's going to show you, okay, so number 1, you are the wing leader. There's your position, okay? Of the 6 together, a row of 3 followed by another row of 3, you are the center of the first row. If it's only 3, 4, or 5, it also shows that, but then it shows you 6 again down there as well, even though it's already showed there at the top. And you've got a black number showing on one side, white number, I guess I should say white on black and black on white numbers, as we see with ID tokens all the time, on either side. They are double-sided cards. All right, so 2, 2. White side, black side, whatever, right, as we're used to. You're going to stick these underneath your ship cards so only that top section is sticking out over the top of it. And each ship in the squadron and each ship in the wing has a specific location. You're either the wing leader, the left flank, the right flank, the rear support, the left support, or the right support. Okay? And what they've done here is, because you're going to need to identify these ships with ID tokens, is they've given us a set of 6 for one wing that would just use the regular black and white ID tokens we already have for 1 through 6. Then there's a blue set of these cards for another wing, and a whole blue set of ID tokens and matching numbered lock tokens. And then the same thing again for a gold/orange and red. And if you want to do a quick build of wings to get them ready for play, which is really just kind of meant when you get a whole bunch of starfighters out there to just make it easier to keep the flow of the game going by keeping the ships together, we have a red squadron quick build card for the rebels, black squadron for the Imperials, skull squadron for scum and villainy, black squadron for the resistance, first order vanguard for the first order, 104th Battalion Sortie for the Republic, and Malevolent Scouting Party for the Separatists. But notice in each case, it's telling you who the wing leader is, who their wingmate is, okay? And in order to have a threat level of whatever, what else do you add into that mix there? Okay? But there's your quick builds, and then just toss those other ones in there, and there's your threat levels beside them. So for a lot of information, it seems like they've done a pretty good job of keeping it fairly compact and easily readable even when a lot of chaotic stuff is happening on the table. But this isn't all the cards we have. We then have 25 remotes, all represented by a card, but it's 5 each of 5 different types: key cargo, satellite, shuttle, warhead, and turret. And of course we have a proof of purchase, but then within the scenarios you're going to need to be able to keep track of your victory points and keep track of your objectives. For objectives, we have a set of 2 each of 5 objective tokens. 1 through 5, blue side, red side. Then to keep track of your victory points, we have 16 of these new types of token here. Basically it has 1 victory point on one side, 3 on the back. Okay, now I promised a little bit of a deeper dive into this rules and scenario book to give you a sense of what you're getting. Okay, so all those components we just looked at, I mean, they all get used for the scenarios that you're playing here. So, not a whole lot in the way of components as we've seen, but they are very useful, what we have. Quite a bit on the way that wings work. Then a bit about how the scenario setup works. Okay, including some general rules to go with it, and a bit about multiplayer games, how team decisions are made if you're playing that type, because there are different types of scenarios, and other specific epic battles rules that you would need to know. It then lays out your scenarios and which page you can find them on and what types they are. And then each scenario gives you a name, a description, in terms of sort of a flavor text, then a synopsis of the actual scenario. Gives you a sense of how many players it's viable for and what type of game mode it is. There's head-to-head, which is one-on-one. There's free-for-all, which winds up essentially being, kind of everyone for themselves, and then team battle. Okay, so kind of standard setup here. You have a scenario setup for each one, specific scenario rules, and how it's scored for each one, and restrictions on your threat levels and whatnot up there if there's anything for that. So we have Epic Escalation that's for 2 to 8 players, and it's a free-for-all. Fog of War is for 2 to 6 players as a free-for-all. Aces High, also 2 to 8 player free-for-all. Then we have Atmospheric Entry, 2 players head-to-head, along with Passing Engagement, same thing. Then a 3-player free-for-all with Key Cargo Retrieval. A 2 to 6 player head-to-head or team battle for Cover the Evacuation. Intel Pickup is 2 to 4 players, either free-for-all or head-to-head. Then you got a 2 to 6 player head-to-head or team battle for Strategic Salvo. All Wings Report In, a 3 to 5 player team battle. Fortified Position, a 3-player team battle. And then no extra reference or anything on the back. But you notice here, defending team, attacking this, attacking it, just lots of detail of how you're setting up your gameplay area. It's going to tell you how many feet you need in any case, how many obstacles you're going to use, how many different remotes you're going to use, if any, the placement of these things. Each one does play a little bit differently because they are scenario-based, but again, this isn't like it's adding a campaign or something. With what we got with Armada, we got 2 campaigns. And the second one really feels more like a traditional campaign than the first that just felt like a series of linked games. This is not a campaign mode. Epic Battles is not for campaign. It's just for these more cinematic, big-ass battles that make use of wings and make use of some of these other components that are now introducing into the game through Epic Battles. It should make X-Wing play more interesting. it's going to be one of those things that just kind of depends on your preferred play mode, but especially now that we have epic ships entering the mix, which, again, it flat out says is interesting to add, but not required to add, should make for some cool gameplay. I'm interested to see how the tournament scene starts to shift a bit if we start to see wings being used and allowed in different formats and whatnot, because it is a cool way of keeping things flowing well and giving you command over multiple ships in sort of one movement, with a little bit of a giveaway of some of the individual control that you otherwise would have. So, if you're interested in Epic Battles, the new expansion here for X-Wing 2nd Edition, you can find it now for $25 at your local game store.